Well, tonight we continue the story that we started actually at the beginning of the week, remembering the last week before Jesus went to the cross. We started on Palm Sunday. The kids helped me wave palm branches as we came in. Some of you got it on camera, which I'm not thankful for, but it's all right. There's forgiveness. Last night we remembered the night before Jesus was betrayed, how he took bread, broke it, and gave it to the disciples, how he washed their feet. Today we continue the story of Jesus being handed over by one of his own, taken into custody, beaten, spat on, mocked, given a crown of thorns, taken to the cross, and ultimately his death on the cross. It's through the saving power of Christ's death and resurrection that we are made right with God, not by any work of our own. We put our faith in the saving power of Jesus through his death on the cross and his resurrection from the dead. Tonight we remember the horror of the crucifixion. Tonight we will walk through this story, remembering this very horrific story about how Jesus was whipped and beaten, taken to the cross, and died. He's given a sign above his head that said, King of the Jews. He was given sour wine to drink, and finally nailed to the cross and died. Silence is extra important tonight, more than it was last night. Last night we said the disciples might have gathered in the room and they might have been cutting jokes and laughing. Today the tone is much different. The disciples watch in disbelief as they see their leader arrested, scorned, beaten, killed. You know, it's hard to sit in silence. It doesn't make us feel comfortable. We want to think about happy things and fill the silence with happy thoughts. But let's sit in the awkwardness. It might be hard, but the cross wasn't easy either. It might be awkward. A baby might cry. There might be a phone go off. There might be some kind of something that messes with us, like the sound continually going off during the service. But that's okay, because there's nothing easy about this story. At the end of the service, as we blow out the candles, it'll be dark in here. The last candle we blow out will be the Christ candle. Please sit in silence for as long as you like, pray, and then you can exit through the back door. We asked you go out the back just so that folks who are still sitting here, it's not a distraction, but you can exit through the back door. But then remember to come in on Sunday morning in silence as well. Tonight we have another refrain. It's a little different from the one that we sang yesterday. I will lead us in it just like I did last night. I will sing it once, and then we can all sing it together, and then we will repeat it as Ruth reads the story for us tonight. So it goes like this. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. So sing it together. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Now will you all join me in our call to worship? I will read the light print and you will read the bold. Who has believed what we have heard? And to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? Surely he has borne our infirmities and carried our diseases. Yet we account him stricken, struck down by God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the punishment that made us whole, and by his bruises we are healed.
After singing a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus said to them, "All of you will fall away, because it is written, 'I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered.' But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you to Galilee." Peter told him, "Even if everyone falls away, I will not." "Truly I tell you," Jesus said to him, "today, this very night, before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times." But he kept insisting, "If I have to die with you, I will never deny you." And they all said the same thing. Then they came to a place named Gethsemane, and he told his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." He took Peter, James, and John with him, and he began to be deeply distressed and troubled. He said to them, "I am deeply grieved to the point of death. Remain here and stay awake." He went a little farther, fell to the ground, and prayed that if it were possible, the hour might pass from him. And he said, "Abba, Father, all things are possible for you. Take this cup away from me. Nevertheless, not what I will, but what you will." Then he came and found them sleeping. He said to Peter, "Simon, are you sleeping? Couldn't you stay awake 1 hour? Stay awake and pray so that you won't enter into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." Once again he went away and prayed, saying the same thing. And again he came and found them sleeping, because they could not keep their eyes open. They did not know what to say to him. Then he came a 3rd time and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Enough! The time has come. See, the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let's go. See, my betrayer is near." While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, suddenly arrived. With him was a mob with swords and clubs from the chief priests, the scribes, and the elders. His betrayer had given them a signal. "The one I kiss," he said, "he's the one. arrest him and take him away under guard. So when he came, immediately he went up to Jesus and said, "Rabbi," and kissed him. They took hold of him and arrested him. One of those who stood by drew his sword, struck the high priest's servant, and cut off his ear. Jesus said to them, "Have you come out with swords and clubs as if I were a criminal to capture me? Every day I was among you, teaching in the temple, and you didn't arrest me, but the scriptures must be fulfilled." Then they all deserted him and ran away. They led Jesus away to the high priest, and all the chief priests, the elders, and the scribes assembled. Peter followed him at a distance, right into the high priest's courtyard. He was sitting with the servants, warming himself by the fire. The chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin were looking for testimony against Jesus to put him to death, but they could not find any. For many were giving false testimony against him, and the testimonies did not agree. Some stood up and gave false testimony against him, stating, "We heard him say, 'I will destroy this temple made with human hands, and in 3 days I will build another not made by hands.' Yet their testimony did not agree, even on this." Then the high priest stood up before them all and questioned Jesus. "Don't you have an answer to what these men are testifying against you?" But he kept silent and did not answer. Again the high priest questioned him, "Are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One?" "I am," said Jesus, "and you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming with the clouds of heaven." Then the high priest tore his robes and said, "Why do we still need witnesses? You have heard the blasphemy. What is your decision?" They all condemned him as deserving death. Then some began to spit on him, to blindfold him, and to beat him, saying, "Prophesy!" The temple servants also took him and slapped him. While Peter was in the courtyard below, one of the high priest's maidservants came. When she saw Peter warming himself, she looked at him and said, "You also were with Jesus, the man from Nazareth." But he denied it. "I don't know or understand what you're talking about." Then he went out to the entryway, and a rooster crowed. When the maidservant saw him again, she began to tell those standing nearby, "This man is one of them." But again he denied it. After a little while, those standing there said to Peter again, "You certainly are one of them, since you're also a Galilean." Then he started to curse and swear, "I don't know this man you're talking about." Immediately a rooster crowed a second time, and Peter remembered when Jesus had spoken the words to him, "Before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times." And he broke down and wept. As soon as it was morning, having held a meeting with the elders, scribes, and the whole Sanhedrin, the chief priest tied Jesus up, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate. So Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" He answered him, "You say so." And the chief priests accused him of many things. Pilate questioned him again. "Aren't you going to answer? Look how many things they are accusing you of." But Jesus still did not answer, and so Pilate was amazed. At the festival, Pilate used to release for the people a prisoner whom they requested. There was one named Barabbas who was in prison with rebels who had committed murder during the rebellion. The crowd came up and began to ask Pilate to do for them as was his custom. Pilate answered them, "Do you want me to release the King of the Jews for you?" For he knew it was because of envy that the chief priests had handed him over. But the chief priests stirred up the crowd so that he would release Barabbas to them instead. Pilate asked them again, "Then what do you want me to do with the one you call the King of the Jews?" Again they shouted, "Crucify him!" Pilate said to them, "Why? What has he done wrong?" But they shouted all the more, "Crucify him!" Wanting to satisfy the crowd, Pilate released Barabbas to them, and after having Jesus flogged, he handed him over to be crucified. The soldiers led him away into the palace, that is, the governor's residence, and called the whole company together. They dressed him in a purple robe, twisted together a crown of thorns, and put it on him. And they began to salute him. "Hail, King of the Jews!" They were hitting him on the head with a stick and spitting on him. Getting down on their knees, they were paying him homage. After they had mocked him, they stripped him of the purple robe and put his clothes on him. They led him out to crucify him. They forced a man coming in from the country who was passing by to carry Jesus' cross. He was Simon of Cyrene, the father of Alexander and Rufus. They brought Jesus to the place called Golgotha, which means place of the skull. They tried to give him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. Then they crucified him and divided his clothes, casting lots for them to decide what each would get. Now it was 9 a.m. when they crucified him. The inscription of the charge written against him was, "The King of the Jews." They crucified 2 criminals with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by were yelling insults at him, shaking their heads and saying, "Ha! The one who would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself by coming down from the cross." In the same way, the priests with the scribes were mocking him among themselves and saying, "He saved others, but he cannot save himself. Let the Messiah, the King of Israel, come down now from the cross, so that we may see and believe." Even those who were crucified with him taunted him. When it was noon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m. And at 3, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani, which is translated, my God, why have you abandoned me? When some of those standing there heard this, they said, see, he's calling for Elijah. Someone ran and filled a sponge with sour wine, fixed it on a stick, offered him a drink, and said, let's see if Elijah comes to take him down.
Well, we refer to this day as Good Friday. I can think of many good days in my life. There was the last Friday of school before we got out for summer. That was a Good Friday. There was my last day of working for a pest control company and crawling under houses all day. That was a Good Friday. There was the day I got married. That was not a Friday, but it was a good day. There was the day that we found out we were having a baby, and then the day we found out we were having a baby boy. Those were good days. I'm sure when he gets here, that will be a good day. But this? You know, to outsiders, I imagine we Christians are an odd bunch of people. I mean, we worship a poor man. A man who was born in a stable, laid in an animal trough, wrapped in rags, born to peasants. And we called that man God. We gather here, just like we did last night, and we talk about eating his body and drinking his blood like we're a bunch of cannibals. We gather here on this night to tell the story of how he was beaten, mocked, spat on, whipped, and given a crown of thorns, nailed to a cross, executed. And we call this day Good Friday. To the world, it might seem more like defeat, weakness. How can something so horrific be so good, we might ask? Well, I think the answer to that can be summed up in one word: redemption. We don't have to look far to know that this world is messed up. We don't even have to read our Bibles to know that. Wars are raged. People commit acts of violence against one another. Children go hungry. People suffer from all kinds of disease and sickness. Innocent people are executed as criminals. That's the world we live in. One day, at the end of all of our lives, we will die. If the only hope we have is that we will fix the world ourselves, then we are hopeless. What we need in this world is a redeemer, a hero, someone from the outside to come in and fix things for us. That's a job for none other than God Himself. I can't do it. You can't do it. All of us together can't do it. For thousands of years, God's people have put their faith in God that He would do it. He will fix this broken world. If we read the Old Testament, we see, especially early in the Old Testament, God kind of going back and forth about what He wants to do with this messed up world. At one point, He goes right to the verge of just destroying it all in the flood. But He saves a little remnant. He starts over. Then as we continue reading the story and the story of Abraham and Moses and all throughout the Old Testament, we see that God has not expected people to fix themselves, but instead He's taken it on Himself to say, I will fix it. I will do what needs to be done to make it right. It's our fault that this world is broken. We break it every day. But God has resolved that He will fix it. He's promised He would. Hebrews chapter 10 reflects back on Jeremiah 31, saying, where Jeremiah says, "This is the covenant that I will make with them. After those days, says the Lord, I will put my laws in their hearts, and I will write them on their minds." He also adds, "I will remember their sins and their lawless deeds no more." Where there is forgiveness of these, Hebrews says, there is no longer any offering for sin. Brothers and sisters, what God has said He would do, He has done. Though we have broken the world and deserve for God to leave us alone in the dark, wipe us out, He has not. He hasn't done it. He hasn't left us alone. Instead, He's done exactly the opposite. He's entered into this dark and broken world, become one of us, taking on flesh like us, so that we might be redeemed and reconciled to Him. The first step of that redemption was forgiveness. Forgiveness of sin. And in order to do that, He took upon Himself what none of us ever could. For any of us to die on a cross wouldn't make much of a difference. We are all sinners. But for God to die in our place, this is redemptive. Yes, the world is still broken. We still have wars. We still have violence. People still die. Kids still go hungry. But as it stands, we have forgiveness. And on top of that, we have the promise that God is still working to make all things right. He started the work. We've witnessed it. We can have faith that He will carry it through and see it through. As Hebrews reminds us, God is still writing His laws on the hearts of people. He's working in you and in me. He's working all throughout this world. He's forgiving sins. That, brothers and sisters, is why this is Good Friday. Hebrews goes on to say, because Christ has done all these things, let us approach with a true heart and full assurance of faith, with our hearts sprinkled clean from an evil conscience, our bodies washed with pure water. Let us hold fast to the confession of our hope without wavering. For He who has promised is faithful. He who has done this great deed that we remember this evening is faithful. We can all put our faith and hope in that. Amen.
My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me, so far from my cries of anguish? My God, why I cry out by day, but you do not answer, by night, but I find no rest. Yet you are enthroned as the Holy One. You are the one Israel praises. In you our ancestors put their trust. They trusted and you delivered them. To you they cried out and were saved. In you they trusted and were not put to shame. But I am a worm and not a man, scorned by everyone, despised by the people. All who see me mock me. They hurl insults, shaking their heads. He trusts in the Lord, they say. Let the Lord rescue him. Let him deliver him, since he delights in him. Yet you brought me out of the womb. You made me trust in you, even at my mother's breast. From birth I was cast on you. From my mother's womb you have been my God. Do not be far from me, for trouble is near, and there is no one to help. Many bulls surround me, strong bulls of Bashan encircle me. Roaring lions that tear their prey open their mouths wide against me. I am poured out like water. All my bones are out of joint. My heart has turned to wax. It has melted within me. My mouth is dried up. My potsherd and my tongue sticks to the roof of my mouth. You lay me in the dust of death. Dogs surround me. A pack of villains encircles me. They pierce my hands and my feet. All my bones are on display. People stare and gloat over me. They divide my clothes among them and cast lots for my garment. But you, Lord, do not be far from me. You are my strength. Come quickly to me. Deliver me from the sword, my precious life from the power of the dogs. Rescue me from the mouth of the lions. Save me from the horns of the wild oxen.
Jesus let out a loud cry and breathed his last. After he bought some linen cloth, Joseph took him down and wrapped him in the linen. Then he laid him in a tomb cut out of the rock and rolled a stone against the entrance to the tomb.